What's happening? Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is very much appreciated. Week one, officially. Week one coming up on Sunday at Cincinnati. Patriots, Bengals. I want to get into a season preview, give you my prediction for this season, win-loss record, some overall thoughts in all three phases for this football team. I want to get into that on Friday. Of course, we will have our game preview. We'll break down the Bengals Patriots matchup, what we like, what we don't like, give you our pick at the end of that podcast on Friday. But before we get all into that, don't forget to give us that thumbs up, like the channel on YouTube when you're watching this, throw a comment in, say hello, say you disagree with me, you agree with me, whatever you want to throw in there, throw a comment in. We need engagement to drive the traffic with this podcast. More engagement means more eyeballs. So like, comment, also subscribe. Trying to hit 3,500 subscribers by Sunday. We're getting closer, but we still need to push this week. So don't forget to like, comment, sub, rate, and review on Spotify and Apple Pods. Crafts and Kickoffs, my NFL podcast, will debut tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. That should be a lot of fun. Also want to let you know that starting next week, we're going to be YouTube only with this podcast. So if you watch on Facebook, if you watch on Twitter, change that. Starting next week, we will be YouTube exclusive with this podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Before I get into the season preview for the Patriots, I'll give you a little bit of some news today. Jamar Chase at practice for Cincinnati. Of course, he's pretty much stayed away from practice for Cincinnati throughout this preseason, throughout the camp. He has shown up every once in a while with just street clothes on, but he was out there with helmet, pads on. So it looks like Jamar Chase might actually play on Sunday. All right, let's get to our season preview for the Patriots, give you our win-loss record at the end of this and how we got there. Start with the coaching staff. A lot of questions about the coaching staff. I have a few questions for each of the coaches. Let's start with Jerod Mayo. I want to know whether or not Mayo is going to be aggressive. Bill Belichick, pre-2012, was one of the most aggressive coaches in football. You look at fourth down and short, around midfield, whatever, he's going to go for it, right? Fourth and short from the opposition's 47-yard line, he's going for it. Fourth and short on his own 47-yard line, he's going for it. And that changed after 2012. And you can't sit there and blame the offense. You can't blame the quarterback. You can't blame the offensive coordinator. You can't blame the offensive line. Even during their second dynasty, their second trio of titles during Belichick's time here, even during that run, he was one of, if not the most conservative coaches in football. And it got worse as time went on. Is Jerod Mayo going to be conservative, or is he going to be aggressive? He gets closer to the 50-yard line. Is he going for it? That's what I want to know, because that could change a lot of this offense. That can change the dynamics of how they move the football. So will Jerod Mayo be aggressive? How about his timeout usage? We watched these preseason games at the end of halves. He seemed to struggle with when to call a timeout, when not to call a timeout. He was not very aggressive near halftime of those preseason games, kept timeouts in his pocket. Will he do that once the season begins? He has Jacoby Brissett out there. He has his ones out there. If, there's under 2 minutes left and Cincinnati has the football on Sunday and it's third down and medium, is Jerod Mayo going to call a timeout dependent on field position? Is he going to use those timeouts? It's a question. The game management side of this, right? We don't know what to expect from Mayo. I want to see more discipline, certainly, when we talk about penalties. They have to figure that out. The pre-snap penalties, the penalties on the offensive line, that has to get better, and that starts with Mayo. Starts at the tippity top. You want your team to be disciplined. You don't want those easy yards for the opposition. So they need to be more disciplined once they kick it off on Sunday. And when will Jerod Mayo go to Drake May? Will he go to Drake May? What if the team is playing well, but the record's not great? Do you make the switch? What if the team is winning, but Brissett is not playing great football? Do you make the switch? If they're losing and or Brissett isn't playing well, then that makes it much easier for Mayo to make that move, right? Makes it much, much easier on the head coach to pull the trigger on the rookie quarterback if the team stinks, if Brissett stinks. But there is a gray area there. So that's some of the stuff with Gerard Mayo. Alex Van Pelt, will he be capable of protecting this offensive line? Will he be capable of protecting the left tackle if that's the biggest issue? Or does he kind of fan the flames and create even more problems? Because you can scheme your way away from some of the mediocre to bad offensive line play. But will Van Pelt be able to scheme his way away from some of those offensive line issues? Something to watch for early on. Drake May's development. Does he continue to develop while they're practicing every week, right? Gerard Mayo said earlier today, you get better by playing football. Well, they've decided that May's not going to play actual football for at least a little bit this year. So how does he get better? What's the plan? Van Pelt, what does he do with the quarterback situation, that quarterback room? How does he get Drake May to continue to take steps forward when he's not getting a lot of reps, if any reps, with the ones? Van Pelt has to find a rhythm as well when it comes to play calling. He hasn't called plays week in and week out for 15 years. He's got to find that rhythm. He's got to find that rhythm early. What are your have-to-have-it calls, right? 3rd and 6, have-to-have-it call. Who you going to? What is the call? Who do you trust on the field? Some questions for Van Pelt. Defensively, DeMarcus Covington. How much has been lost without Steve and Bill Belichick? How much of a difference is there when it comes to defensive acumen, when it comes to game planning, when it comes to on-the-fly adjustments? How much has been lost? We always credit Bill Belichick as one of the greatest defensive minds in football history, if not the greatest defensive mind in football history. You don't have that anymore. And Steve, who learned directly from underneath his dad, you don't have him either. And he was a really good play caller. So how much have you lost with Steve and Bill Belichick now gone? Defensive line. Covington coached the defensive line, and we saw a lot of progress from multiple guys on that defensive line, including Christian Barmore over the past couple of years. But Barmore is not going to be out there, out indefinitely. So what can you get from that defensive line? How can you help your defensive line without Barmore and then trading Judon to Atlanta? That's going to fall on the defensive coordinator. How do you make that defensive line productive? How do you get the most out of those guys? And how much is Covington going to spin the dial? How much are we going to see, pre-snap to post-snap changes, disguised coverages? How much of that will we see from a DeMarcus Covington defense? Let's talk about our guy, Jeremy Springer, special teams coordinator. Who's returning without Jalen Reagor, right? Who's returning kicks without Reagor back there? Does Reagor get brought up from the practice squad to do that early on this season? Is Marcus Jones going to get reps? Pop Douglas. I don't want Pop Douglas returning punts. I don't want him anywhere near special teams. I want him on the field as a receiver, as our slot guy, if I'm the Patriots. I'm not messing around with these punt returns. Yes, he's dynamic, yada, yada, but he's also a smaller guy who has a concussion history. I don't want to put him in the line of fire more than I need to. So who is going to be the returners for this football team, and can they get the most out of them? The kickoff strategy with the new rules. How aggressive will the Patriots be with Joey Sly now kicking instead of Chad Ryland? Will they go for more 50-plus yard field goals because of Sly? That was really the difference maker in that kicking competition. Sly did better from longer distances. I expect a learning curve everywhere with this coaching staff. Everywhere. From Mayo to Van Pelt to Covington to Springer. I would anticipate that learning curve. There are going to be mistakes. We have to understand that. We have to acknowledge the fact that there are going to be mistakes made by this coaching staff. An experienced staff, some of them a young staff, especially the head guy in Gerard Mayo. There are going to be mistakes. The biggest thing is to not repeat those mistakes. Do not be repeat offenders. Gerard Mayo said weeks ago with the media, look, I'm going to make mistakes, but I am not a repeat offender. Make sure that's the case. Because if we have another situation like we saw against Washington in that final preseason game, when you have not one, not two, not three, but 4 illegal formation flags on the offensive line, that is being a repeat offender, especially Chuks Okorafor. Straighten it out. Get the best out of those guys. They've got to make sure they don't repeat some of those mistakes as a coaching staff. They've got to learn this team in the first month or so of the season, and then they've got to get going. All right, we'll talk about the offense in a minute for our 2024 season preview of the New England Patriots. Before we get to that offense, make sure you do a few things here. Click that thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, you can also like this video as you watch, but give us that thumbs up on YouTube and also throw a comment in. More likes, more comments means more engagement. We get more people involved here. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, it takes a second of your time. It helps us tremendously. So throw a sub our way. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review the podcast. I also have a Patreon page if you want to check it out. $5 a month, $1.25 a week. All sorts of exclusive content happening over at the Patreon. And a lot of Celtics, Bruins talk once those teams start playing. If you want me on other sports as far as talking about those sports and giving you content, Patreon's the way to go. Patreon.com/Nick Cattles, Cattles. Let's get to the offense. You have to start up front, right? The offensive line. Sidy Sow, Vederian Lowe. Are they healthy? How healthy are they? Vederian Lowe was out at practice today. He was limited, but he was at least out there, which makes you believe he's getting closer. I'm not sure we'll see him in week 1. Sidy Sow was not at practice, so it certainly looks like Sow is going to miss this weekend's game, has that calf issue. So how healthy can you get those two guys? You need 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen to work. You need 4 out of those 5 guys to at least be, average. And that could be Sidy Sow / Layden Robinson at left guard, Andrews, Owenu. I think you have at least 3 right now. I feel good about Owenu. I feel good about Andrews. And I feel good about one of Sow or Robinson giving you good football at left guard. 3 guys. How about the tackle spots? Well, now, as far as practice goes, with Vederian Lowe an unknown, Chuks Okorafor right now is your left tackle. Mike Owenu has been practicing at right tackle. So that's what it looks like. Robinson at right guard, Owenu at right tackle, Okorafor left tackle. Your left guard is Nick Leverett / Michael Jordan. And at center, of course, is Andrews. So can this offensive line get healthy? Can they get healthy soon? Can they build that chemistry, iron out some of the wrinkles, and be better? I don't know. Jury's still out. I'm going to give them 4 or 5 weeks to figure this stuff up front. Figure it out and make the best of what you have. And then I will evaluate this offensive line and say, holy crap, it's trash, or it's not as bad as we thought. So the offensive line, lots of questions going into the season. I think you've got at least 3 out of the 5 guys you need on this team to do a good enough job on the O-line. Can you find the other guys? Can you make the most out of Caden Wallace and Chuks Okorafor and Vederian Lowe, or is tackle going to be a nightmare? Quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. He has a good history when you go back to 2022 with Alex Van Pelt when they were with the Browns. He was a top 10-ish quarterback in QBR. So if anybody is going to get something out of Jacoby Brissett, you would imagine it's going to be Van Pelt. They have experience together. They have produced together. There's a comfort level. So if Brissett does not work in this offense with Van Pelt, he's just not going to work moving forward. It's just not going to be good enough. We'll see if 2022 is too far in the rearview mirror. We'll see if it was more about the talent around Brissett and the offensive line in front of Brissett, or if it was Jacoby and Alex, this magical offensive couple, getting the most out of Brissett and making him at least a pretty good starting quarterback when he started for the Browns, those 10 or 11 games in 2022. I will tell you this. I feel like Brissett will turn the football over less than the quarterbacks last year. I do think that Brissett is better than what you saw last year from Mac and Bailey Zappi. I think Brissett is a better quarterback than that. It's not saying much. It's a low bar. It's all relative, right? But the quarterback play that we saw was so terrible last year. I would say Brissett is absolutely better than those guys that we saw. And so I anticipate less turnovers from this offense, less interceptions. At least take care of the football. At least take care of the football. In the quarterback room, you have better arms. You have better athleticism. Brissett, May, Milton all have above average arms. May and Milton have well above average arms. And of course, Milton has the bazooka, the cannon. But you've got some quality traits in the quarterback room this year. Some of that natural talent. That's how I feel about the quarterback position. We'll get to running backs, receivers, tight ends in a couple of minutes. But first, we've got a couple super chats here. Don't forget to send a super chat if you want to jump to the front of the line. Throw your comment in. What do you think the record is? If you're watching this podcast right now, what is your prediction for this season? What are the concerns you have? Are you excited to see any part of this football team that is not Drake May? Throw your comments in while you watch and or listen. If you're watching and or listening on demand, you can still throw your comments in there. That helps engagement. Charlie, $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. My hope is one division win. Would love to stick it to one of our AFC East rivals and perhaps stop someone's playoff run. I do have the Patriots winning a division game. I have them winning a division game against who? You'll have to wait. You'll have to wait to see when I give you my prediction, but I do have them winning one division game this year, at least one. So stay tuned for that. I think, Charlie, it is absolutely possible that they can get at least one W against the division. We'll see if it happens. Thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Louise jumps in with a $20 super chat. I'm missing Bill Belichick interviews. Is it just me? I can't stand another Mayo press conference. I never thought I would miss this. Cheers from Brazil. Love you, Nick. Well, thank you, Louise. I appreciate you. I love the support. Hopefully you're well down there in Brazil. Here's what I would say. I am frustrated by the Gerard Mayo media experience, his press conferences, the contradictions. They have frustrated me. And I thought one of the things that Mayo would do really well with at the beginning of the process of being a head coach in the NFL is dealing with the press. But he's been all over the place. I don't think he's helped himself. I don't think he's helped the team. I don't think he helped any of the quarterbacks. I do believe he should say less. Now, I also could not stand the Belichick stuff because there was zero transparency. A number of times there was not enough accountability or responsibility for certain decisions that were made. And so what I would like is, can we bridge the gap? We don't need a Bill Belichick who's, grumbling and snorting his way through every press conference, not giving us anything, without going to the other extreme, diarrhea of the mouth with Gerard Mayo. Can we split the difference? Can we find a middle ground? I think Mayo has said too much. I think he has suffered from word salad. He ends up diving down rabbit holes because he's trying to say too much. And he's just got to take a deep breath and pause for a minute. So I do think Mayo needs to say less, but I'm not against this idea of saying more than Belichick. And I certainly do not miss Bill Belichick press conferences. But I appreciate the super chat, Louise. All right, let's get to the running back room. I really like the running back room this year. Ramondre Stevenson had a very good camp. I think he's going to have a good year as long as he stays healthy. Antonio Gibson, I loved the signing at the time. I think he brings potential both as a runner and a receiver. He's that third down back that they've been looking for, or maybe just straight up ignored post James White. But I like the 1-2 punch. I really like Stevenson. I really like Gibson. I think you have something there. Jermichael Hasty had a good camp. I think he gives you a little bit of shiftiness, right? He gives you something out of the backfield as a receiver as well. So I like the room. I like the room, and I expect this offense to be run heavy this year. I think we should expect a good amount of handoffs, especially early in the season, from whoever the quarterback is. But I like the running back room. I like Terrell Jennings, Kevin Harris. I like those guys on the practice squad. Little extra beef, right? They are bigger backs. I think that's for an obvious reason. Antonio Gibson, again, pass catcher. Hasty's not the biggest guy in the world. So you've got a couple of bigger backs in case Stevenson comes up a little bit lame at one point with an injury, or, he's running out of gas. Something happens there. You have two guys who are bigger on the practice squad. Jennings had a really good camp. Kevin Harris had a decent camp. I think they're in good shape at running back. I also think they're in good shape at tight end. Hunter Henry's been back at practice now for about a week. And we have to understand the tight end position is critical to this offense. Get ready for a lot of tight end. Get ready for a lot of passes into the flat off play action, right? Play action, bootleg, little dump off to a tight end in the flat, yards after the catch. Get ready for tight ends going down the seam for big plays off of play action. Get ready for that yak. Tight ends are vital in this offense. And I think Alex Van Pelt is going to throw the football a decent amount to both Henry and Hooper. I think Hunter Henry is one of the guys that's overlooked. I think he's better than what people understand. I think he was hurt last year by quarterback play. You go back to 21, he was pretty damn good. He's always been one of the better tight ends in football. I wouldn't say top 3 to 5, but he's always been one of the better guys at that position. If Hunter Henry can stay healthy in this offense, I think he's going to give you a pretty good season. Austin Hooper has worked with Alex Van Pelt in the past. He has a comfort level with this offense. He had a pretty good camp. And when you're at camp and you're watching these padded practices, what you noticed was that the tight ends get open a decent amount in this offense. They can get the tight ends open. So don't overlook Hunter Henry. Don't overlook Austin Hooper. And also, don't overlook Jaheim Bell. I've called him the secret weapon during camp. Not because I think he's going to catch 50 passes, but I think he can pop a couple of bigger plays with his athleticism, his versatility, and how he fits in this offense. I think he can pop a pretty big play every once in a while and help this offense move the ball down the field. So I like the 3 tight ends. Henry and Bell are not really the best blockers, especially Bell. Hooper can block a little bit, but I like the tight end room. I think those guys can be productive as long as they stay healthy. Wide receiver. Let's talk wide receiver. Jalen Polk needs to play. I need to see Jalen Polk getting snaps. He needs to be the guy that is out there a lot. He needs to get some of the KJ Osborne snaps at times that we saw him not getting at camp in the preseason. Jalen Polk needs playing time. I want to see him out there on the damn field. I don't want to see Polk standing around on the sidelines watching KJ Osborne and whoever else. You don't have the room to just kind of sit him and be like, all right, whatever, right? KJ Osborne will get his snaps. He'll get enough. But this should be about Jalen Polk. Javon Baker, he's had a very up and down camp, mostly down. He had the Instagram thing happen over the weekend when he's crying and complaining about a cop or whatever the hell. I think he's in the doghouse. Maybe Javon Baker will actually be a contributor by week 6 or 7. I'm not banking on him, especially early in the year. I need to see Jalen Polk out there. KJ Osborne deserves some time. Tyquan Thornton has had a good camp. He's really their only ex-receiver right now on this roster, on the active roster. You're going to see Tyquan Thornton out there a decent amount. And, of course, you got Pop Douglas in the slot. But Jalen Polk needs to play. As far as Thornton, can Thornton back up his camp? He's been able to stay relatively healthy. He had a good camp. Looks like he is running routes better. He got open a decent amount during the preseason. Can they get something out of Tyquan Thornton finally? Can they finally get something from him? I will only believe it when I see it. I will only believe it when I see it. I was there. I saw the camp. But I want him. I want him to prove it when the games count. So do you get anything out of Thornton? How will they use Pop Douglas? Will they use him with a decent amount of gadget plays? Will we see jet sweeps to Pop Douglas? Will we see a lot of bubble screens? Will he be working in the intermediate area from time to time? I'm interested to see how they utilize Pop, because Pop is their best receiver, especially with Kendrick Bourne on the PUP list to start the year. How do they use him? Where do they put him? He's going to be in the slot, but how do they use him as far as a gadget player? What will they do? When does Bourne return? I just mentioned. Is Kendrick Bourne back by week 5? Or is it going to take him a little bit more time? I think Kendrick Bourne, his involvement in this offense will really help. I saw a report the other day that said the Niners were not going to trade Ayuk unless they got like a top tier receiver or I forget what the phrase was, but let's just say a very good receiver. The Niners were not interested in trading Ayuk unless they got a really good receiver back. They wanted Pickens from Pittsburgh. They tried to work a 3-team deal with Pittsburgh when they found out that they weren't going to deal Pickens. They were going after Cortland Sutton. They tried to get Amari Cooper from Cleveland, but they wanted Kendrick Bourne. Bourne was part of the Patriots package, which tells you Kyle Shanahan believes that Kendrick Bourne is a very good receiver. And I think he is the best overall receiver on this football team. So when he gets back, how healthy is he? What kind of production can you get from him? That could go a long way in helping this pass offense. So don't overlook Kendrick Bourne. Kayshon Boutte, I don't even know if he'll be active. If he's active, can he give them anything? Can he keep his feet in bounds? He has some plays that you go, oh my goodness, what a freaking catch. What a play by Boutte. And then he'll disappear for the next 30 minutes, or he'll drop a pass, or he won't get his feet in bounds. There's a lot of up and down. It's year 2 now for Kayshon. He made this roster. He's got to make sure that he irons out some of the issues he's had in the past. He has to be more consistent when he's given the opportunity. And Javon Baker, we'll see what happens with him. Hopefully it's not a lost season because he has not had a good last month or so. I expect this offense to be better than it was last year. I expect them to score more points. I expect them to turn the football over less. But inevitably, they do have a limited ceiling. They don't have a wide receiver 1. They're dealing with a lot of youth. They're dealing with a lot of turnover, right? A lot of new in this offense. An offensive coordinator that hasn't called plays on a weekly basis since 2009. My question is, can they get to 20 points a game? Can you get to 20 points per game? If this offense can get to 20 points per game, you're going to have a decent amount of competitive games this year. Can they get to that? Can they get to 20? We'll see. Go over defense in a minute. My thoughts on this Patriots defense. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Those 2 things take a second of your time and doesn't really cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything to like and comment and subscribe to this program. I appreciate every single one of you and your help as we try to build this podcast as the football season goes on. By the way, it looks like Bill Belichick has joined Twitter. So there you have it. A lot of people are freaking out about this, but Bill Belichick looks like he has joined Twitter, and he has a BillBelichick.com link with it. So the world is a-changing. Belichick on Twitter. Classic. All right, let's get into the defense. Don't forget, Crafts and Kickoffs, my NFL podcast, debuts tomorrow night at 7 Eastern. I'll have a beer with all of you. We'll talk about the 5 top storylines that week in the NFL, and should be fun. So that's happening tomorrow night, 7 Eastern, debut episode. Let's talk about the defense. Cornerback. Christian Gonzalez needs to be damn good. I don't know if he needs to be a shutdown, crazy, unbelievable corner, but he needs to be damn good. He needs to be good enough where this coaching staff feels like they can bank on him to at least limit the top receivers one-on-one. Doesn't have to completely shut them down, but limit them. Because if he can limit the top receiver as he travels, right? As he travels, hopefully he does travel with the best receiver. If he can limit that guy opposite of him, that's going to open up all sorts of things that DeMarcus Covington can do defensively. So Christian Gonzalez, he needs to be damn good. I think he will be damn good. The Joneses, can they stay healthy? Start with Marcus Jones. If Marcus Jones can stay healthy, he gives you versatility in the slot. He can play some safety. He has that impact play ability that he brings. But I'm not confident he's going to stay healthy. He just has not proven that he could do so. Fingers crossed. Hopefully he does. But this camp, he got banged up and missed some time. Can Marcus Jones stay on the field? Jonathan Jones, he's now 31 years old. Can Jonathan Jones stay on the field? If you have Gonzalez and the Joneses, I feel good with that top three. I feel good with that top three. I think Gonzalez is a legitimate cornerback one on the outside. I think Jones is a pretty damn good cornerback two. And Marcus Jones in the slot, he can also swap a little bit with Jonathan play on the outside. I think you've got some good versatility there. You've got good athleticism. I think you've got guys that can make plays on the football. So I like their top three. Cornerback-wise, number 4, we'll see what happens. I think that battle right now is between Marco Wilson and Alex Austin. If I were to bet, I think the Patriots would play Wilson ahead of Austin right now, and they would play him in front of Austin on Sunday against Cincinnati. We'll see if that's right. But Wilson and Austin, they need to provide that depth, especially, again, with the age of Jonathan Jones and the injury history of Marcus and the injury history, even though it's been a short history. It's only been in the league for a year, but the injury history of Gonzalez. So cornerback depth, do they have it? Do they have good enough depth? I mean, they've got players, they've got bodies, but can those guys step up? I have confidence in Mike Pellegrino, the secondary coach, to get the most out of those guys. He's done it an awful lot with this team. So cornerback, I'm a little less concerned than other people are. Safety, I think this is the deepest position. I think this is probably the best position for the Patriots on this roster between Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers. What those guys can do, they can play in the box. They can play on the back end. They're more in the box than they are back end, but they can do both. Duggar and Peppers are just impact players. They can come downhill. They can create turnovers. They are one of the best safety tandems in football. So I think you're pretty good. You're pretty damn good with Duggar and Peppers. Jalen Hawkins is a name that you're going to want to pay attention to. He got a lot of reps in camp. He got, team one snaps along with those other guys. The Patriots, I think, will play 3 safety a decent amount this year, and they will start with Duggar, Peppers, and Hawkins. And Hawkins, pretty good camp. Can he keep that up? Depth-wise at safety, Del Pettis, Brennan Schooler. A lot of people go, what, Schooler, really? He actually played pretty well at safety during camp. And so, he's got the speed. He's got the coverage ability with the speed. So hopefully we don't have to see a lot of Pettis or Schooler. You want to see Peppers, Duggar, and Hawkins getting pretty much every snap that you have as a defense. Marte Mapu, he has that return designation. Will he ever get on the field? Gerard Mayo brought him up as a safety option. So I think they're good at safety. Linebackers, good downhill. Jawan Bentley, Jelani Tavai. I think you're fine there. Are they great athletes? Not really. I do wonder about their linebacker coverage with Sione Takitaki. Hasn't been healthy all camp long. He's on the PUP list. When does Takitaki come back? Does he come back? Raekwon McMillan, somebody keep an eye on. He is very athletic. He's had all sorts of terrible injury issues with the Patriots, but when he's out there, he plays pretty well, and he's got that athleticism. What do you do outside linebacker-wise with the pass rush? O'Shane Ximenez, I think, will give you some pass rush. Not good against the run. Joshua Uche can get you some pass rush. Not very good against the run. So how do you balance that? How do you balance the pass rushing outside linebackers with some of the other guys that you have at linebacker, right? Or defensive end? How do you deal with that? How much will you see of Ximenez or Uche? I'm not sure. Uche wasn't out there a ton during camp. Had some injury stuff going on, got kicked out during one practice. I think you'll see a lot of Anthony Jennings. I think you'll see Dietrich Wise. I think you'll see Tavai play some on the edge because they like the idea of containing. But when you want pass rush, Keon White, is he a 3-down player? We'll see. If you have White on one end, do you just rotate Ximenez and Uche? We'll see how they handle that. Keon White, big opportunity for him. Huge opportunity for Keon White this season. We've talked about him a lot during camp. This is his opportunity to prove to the world that he is an every down player in the NFL. and that he could fulfill that athletic potential that he has. Patriots were great against the run last year. I think they'll be very good against the run again this season. You've got Jennings and Tavai and Wise, as I mentioned. Those guys are good on the edge. They can contain the edge. They're good against the run. So you have that. And, you do wonder at defensive end, will they try to scheme up some pressure? Are they going to bank on Keon White to be one-on-one with the guy opposite of him and just beat him? Or will they try to scheme some of that pressure off the edge? I think you'll see some scheme. I don't know how much. Interior defensive line. Again, the Patriots defense last year was the best defense against the run. And if you look historically, recent history, they were one of the best run defenses of the past 20 to 30 years. Devon Godchaux, that is the heart of this defense, early downs. First and second down, Godchaux, great against the run, eats up space, critical to this defensive operation. His ability to clog up the run up the middle, open other guys up on that defensive line is just huge. Aquale had a good camp. More of a pass rushing guy than he is a run stuffer inside of that defensive line. But Aquale, I think, will get some decent push. Jeremiah Farms came in this camp season like a lion, went out kind of like a lamb. Which Jeremiah Farms do we see? Is he able to make some plays every once in a while? He did show the ability to get to the quarterback from the interior. But again, more of that was early on than it was late. I think they're pretty thin. They're thin at interior defensive line without Christian Barmore and Lawrence Guy being out. They are thin in that spot. You've got to hope. You've got to hope that Godchaux and Aquale stay healthy. Ultimately, I think this defense is a top 10-ish defense in DVOA. They were 9th last year. I would put them, anywhere between 9 and 13 or so, 9 and 12, somewhere in that range. I do not think they're going to be a top 8 defense. I do not think they're going to be a top 5 defense, not without Christian Barmore. People bring up Matthew Judon. They were the 9th best defense in DVOA last year without Judon and without Christian Gonzalez for most of the year. I pay attention more to Christian Barmore and his ability to get pass rush on the interior. So I do think defensively they have enough talent. I do think they'll do good enough scheme-wise that this defense will be hovering around that 10 mark, right on the outside looking in as far as a top 10 defense. I have more confidence in this defensive staff than the offensive staff because these guys have been here. Brian Belichick and Covington and Pellegrino, obviously Gerard Mayo. I think this defense is going to be very aggressive. Very aggressive. I mean, they were top 5 or 6 last year in blitz rate. I think they're going to be very aggressive with Covington as the DC. That's at least what I expect. That's what I anticipate, is them to get after the quarterback. All right, I'll give you my prediction in a minute. My Patriots 2024 season prediction, the record, and I'll even tell you which games I think they're going to win. My best guess as far as which games they will win on this schedule. Before I get to the prediction, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. Coming up on Friday at 3 p.m., we'll do a live podcast. We will preview the Bengals-Patriots game. So you don't want to miss that. I dive into the numbers. I look at some of the matchups, and I will break that game down pillar to post on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. All right. I do not think this team is a 0-win team. I don't think they're a 1-win team. I don't think they're a 2-win team. I think some of the talk has gone too far. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. You can believe that they won't win a game. You can believe that they'll win 1 or 2 games. That's fine. I do not think they are a 2-win team. I don't. I think the defense is too good. I think the defense will keep this team too competitive to believe that they'll win 1 or 2 games. I think the offense will have some good weeks. I do. I think this offense will have at least some good weeks. I don't think the offense is going to be as bad as last year. I think they will take steps forward offensively. They might take a slight step back defensively. But I do think the defense will be good enough to keep this team competitive. The offense will have some good weeks. And you always have surprises, right? you always have surprises. There's always going to be one or two games when you look at it, you go, holy crap, I didn't see them winning that game. It goes the other way, too. If you're a good team, holy crap, I didn't think they'd lose that game. So there's always one or two swing games when you think about record before a season. If you think a team's going to win 9 games, they could win 7, they could win 11. There's always a couple of those swing games. Always surprises. I can't see 8 wins. I just don't see 8 wins on this schedule. I don't think the Patriots will win 8 games. They will not be 8-9. So I don't think they'll be 2-15. I don't think they'll be 8-9. The reason why I don't see 8 wins, I think you have too many questions with this coaching staff. You have too many questions right now with the offensive line. Hopefully that gets settled in the next few weeks. You have no legitimate bona fide wide receiver 1 on this team, a guy that scares the opposing defense. There's so much new from the top on down. Yes, Mayo has been here, but first time as a head coach. The coaching staff, so much new. They had to turn over a lot on that offense, talent-wise on the field. There's a lot of new. And I don't think this team is equipped to win shootouts. And with this schedule against a murderer's row of quarterbacks, there are going to be some games, even though the defense will keep it competitive most weeks, I just have to imagine there will be at least a few games, maybe 2, maybe 3, where the opposing offense gets it going a little bit and they score 27, 30 points, maybe over 30 points. And I don't think this offense, with the talent that they have on this roster, I don't think it's equipped to deal with a 30-point game. So that's why I don't see this team winning 8 games. The staff, the offensive line, the wide receiver 1, a lot of new, don't have a shootout offense. So I don't see 8 wins. Here's my prediction. You ready? I'm going to go by game. You start at Cincinnati, then versus Seattle, then you play at the Jets. I think the Patriots win one of those games. I don't think they win at San Francisco. So if we broke this schedule down in quadrants, let's start with the first quadrant. At Cincy, versus Seattle, at the Jets, at San Francisco. 3 or 4 games on the road. The Jets are a short week, incredibly difficult start. I think the Patriots can win one of those games. I think they could win one of those games. I won't tell you which one just yet, but I've got them down for 1 win out of the first 4. So we're 1-3. Quad number 2. I think they could actually win 2 games from quad 2. At home against Miami, at home against Houston. They play Jacksonville and London, and then they host the Jets. I think they can get 2 wins out of the next 4 games. So right now I'm at 3-5. I'll tell you the wins in a little bit. I'm at 3-5. Then, because there's 17 games, we have to look at, the next 4 or 5. Let's look at the next quad. At Tennessee, at Chicago, versus the Rams, and then at Miami. I think they get 1 win out of the next 4 games. So 1 win out of the first 4, 2 out of the next 4, 1 out of the third set of 4 games. They'll win a game out of the Tennessee, Chicago, Rams, Miami quadrant. And then you look at the last 5. The last 5 are pretty interesting. There are a couple of opportunities. You got 2 against Buffalo. You host the Chargers. You're out in Arizona, and you host Indianapolis. I've got 1 win out of those 5. I've got 1 win out of those 5 games. Hosting the Colts, at Arizona, 2 against Buffalo, hosting the Chargers. Here's my prediction. 5-12. Now, with that said, there's always a couple swing games. I think this team's floor is 3 wins. I think it's possible this team goes 3-14. Possible. But I also think this team has a ceiling of 7 wins. I would not be stunned if they won 7 games. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't be stunned. I think their ceiling is 7. I can't see this team winning more than 7 games with this schedule and all the questions. So the floor is 3. The ceiling is 7. I'm settling right at 5. Here are my 5 wins. Seattle, week 2, at home. Seattle travels, early kickoff for them, rookie head coach versus rookie head coach. I think defensively they can do some things that will bother Geno Smith in that offense. They're good against the run, so I think they'll somewhat limit Kenneth Walker. So I like week 2. I like week 2 against Seattle. I like Jacksonville and London. Trevor Lawrence has been up and down. I think you can do some things that will bother them. In London, you probably have more fans in London for that game for the Patriots than you have for the Jaguars. So I think they can beat Jacksonville in London. I think this one's tougher, but I think they can beat the Jets in Gillette. I think they can beat the Jets. Alex Van Pelt has history with Aaron Rodgers. He might know some of the weaknesses, right? He might know some of those issues. Is Rodgers healthy? If you've got Christian Gonzalez against Garrett Wilson, is Mike Williams healthy? The rest of that Jets receiver core doesn't really freak you out, right? Alan Lazard and guys like that doesn't really freak you out. And their run defense, if you can somehow slow down Breece Hall, now the Jets' offense, with what the Patriots have defensively, if Gonzalez limits Wilson and you slow down Breece Hall, now the game is completely on the shoulders of Aaron Rodgers, who's 40 coming off of an Achilles, with a defense that I think they would go after him. So I've got them beating the Jets in Gillette Stadium. My 4th win at Tennessee. They can win that game. They can beat Will Levis. They can beat that Titans team. I've got them winning in Tennessee. And then my final and 5th win, I've got them beating Indianapolis here at Gillette. Anthony Richardson is a fun prospect. He's a huge human being. He's difficult to bring down and all of that stuff. But Richardson is still very raw. He will be playing here in Gillette late in the season. This is a dome team, right? Dome team on the road late in the year. And I think when you look at that, right, you look at that situation where you're in November, you're in December football. Is Richardson comfortable? Plays in a dome in Indy, played at Florida in college, warmer weather quarterback, dome quarterback. How's he deal with being on the road with some noise? I think Drake May at that point will be your quarterback. So I think they could beat Indy. I think they could beat Indy at Gillette. So those are my 5 wins. Seattle, Jacksonville, Jets at Gillette, Tennessee, Indianapolis. Those are my 5 wins. There are some opportunities. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept it tight against Arizona. I would not be surprised if they kept it tight against the Chargers. That Chargers game is interesting to me. I think it's on December 29th. I mean, it's right before the new year. Chargers. You're talking about a team traveling across the country after Christmas, before New Year's, warm weather team, late December in New England. Justin Herbert's history. Herbert has not been great against the Patriots. So the Chargers, I think, that could be a game. That there could be some vulnerability with the Chargers late in the season, right? Now, are they fighting for playoff lives? I don't know. But it's always interesting to see a team that travels across the country late in the year, used to warm weather, dealing with, late December cold, maybe snow in New England, especially when you talk about Herbert, who, again, if you look at his numbers, he has been miserable against the Patriots. So I think you have an opportunity there. I think you could spot a couple of games on this schedule that they have a shot. Now, of course, they could lose to Seattle. You could argue with that too. Mike McDonald, the new defensive coordinator / head coach of Seattle, very aggressive guy. He can mix it up. Maybe Seattle wins. They get the run game going. The Patriots aren't good enough to write any of these wins in Sharpie, okay? They're not good enough to be like stamp of approval, done. No. No. But I look at the schedule. I look at some of these opportunities. I've got them at 5-12. Floor, 3 wins. Ceiling, 7 wins. They could lose against Seattle. They could lose against the Jets. They could beat Arizona. They could escape with a win against the Chargers late in the year at home. So that's what I've got. 5-12. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. All of those things don't cost you a dime. They take a second of your time, and they help build this brand and build this podcast. So before you go, give us that thumbs up, comment, subscribe, rate and review Spotify, Apple Pods. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, we will be right here again, Crafts and Kickoffs. I'll have one of my favorite craft beers in a bottle, just chilling in a mug. We'll have a beer. We'll talk NFL. Get you ready for, Ravens and Chiefs as the season kicks off tomorrow night. That's tomorrow at 7. Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern. Bengals, Patriots preview. Till then, be well. I appreciate every single one of you. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.